Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. My larch forest has grown and it's all shaggy and it needs a pruning. So today I'm going to try and get it trimmed back to size and looking good. Some of the branches in the forest have grown really long and vigorous. Other branches, there's just a little small tuft of foliage on them. I'm going to balance the vigor today, pruning those long branches back and making the forest look a little less shaggy. I'll use my scissors and I'll prune back the branches, leaving just a little bit of the new growth. So here I go. Tastes good. That's got the long branches pruned back in the apex, and now I'm pruning back some of the weaker ones. You see there, they're not elongated very much. There. So as far as I can see, I've got all those branches in the apex pruned back. Now it still looks like a big mop of foliage, so I've got to needle thin. So I'm going to come in and just start plucking out needles until it gets back to, a more reasonable look. So it's a little thinner. I'm kind of removing the bottom needles a bit. Now there's some more branches back here that I need to prune. I gotta find where they come from. So there's where that branch comes from, so I'll trim it back like that, and then there's another branch back here. Trim it back to here. Like that. And another one here. Okay. And then I'll continue the needle pulling. And these needles pull off really nicely, or really easily, when the foliage is soft like this. You hardly have to pull. So this is partial defoliation. This is a deciduous tree. It loses its needles in fall. And it takes the vigor out of the apex on the tree, so it doesn't thicken up and become out of proportion with the rest of the tree. It keeps your apex branches slimmer, finer, so they don't thicken up and become coarse. So I'm hoping, with pruning and defoliation, that I can manage the apex on the trees much more easily. Yeah, so I'm kind of starting to see the shape of the structure of the tree now up top here. The first flush of growth on a larch is the most vigorous flush of growth. You get long needles and rapidly growing shoots. I'll prune it back today, and then the second flush comes in later on and it's weaker. You'll maybe get a third and maybe a fourth flush within the summer. And by the fourth flush, the needles are very small. The growth is much weaker and the tree looks really good. So it's this first flush of growth that's the most difficult to manage. I'll continue to prune up the branches, starting at the top of the tree and working my way down. With all this dense foliage on the tree, there's not much light reaching the moss on the forest floor. So if I didn't thin out the trees, I don't think the moss would do very well. Wow, this shoot's really long here. Look at the length of it. This needle plucking also gives me space between the branches for air circulation. Important for the health of the tree. I'm going to continue scissor pruning all the new growth on the trees and plucking out all the really long needles and the ones that are underneath the branches. Then we'll come back and see how the forest looks. The Tropical Expressions workshop on Brazilian rain trees went really well. It was a lot of fun. Barb came from Michigan and she visited the bonsai zone here and had a tour of the backyard and saw the trees. And we went over and saw the community gardens, and we went for lunch. It was a fantastic morning and afternoon. She brought me some gifts from Michigan, and they're really awesome. So I'll show you what Barb brought me. The first item is Montmorency dried cherries. This is from the Cherry Republic. I founded the Cherry Republic in 1989 to help support our beloved cherry farmers. Today we craft ruby red morsels of joy, Aka cherries, into 200 world-class products and gifts that are enjoyed by our local citizens around the globe. Enjoy this unique taste of northern Michigan from our home to yours. And they are so good. There's just a slight sour taste to them, but they're sweet and sour at the same time. They're fantastic. So thanks, Barb. They're wonderful. Barb also got us this really cool oven mitt. And you'll notice that this part of Michigan is shaped like a hand. So when people in Michigan describe where their city's located, they hold out their hand, and then they can just point on the part of the hand where their city's located. So that's pretty cool. And the back, you use the other hand, the other side of your hand. So that's really cool. Thanks, Barb. Barb also got us some sour cherry jam. That is going to be fantastic. That was the gifts from the first bag. The second bag has a roll that I can put all my tools in, which is really, really nice. So you put all your tools in here, and then you fold it down and roll it up. So it makes it a lot easier. You don't have to carry around my big toolbox, and I can keep the tools oiled and in this pouch, keep them safe and sound. So thanks, Barb. Barb is a member of the Ann Arbor Bonsai Society, and they just recently celebrated their 50th anniversary from 1970 to 2020. And she brought me this t-shirt, so that's really cool. Thanks very much, Barb. And I'll put a link to the Bonsai Society in the description below. I really enjoyed having Barb down for the day. It was a lot of fun. So thanks very much for the gifts, Barb, and thanks for coming to the workshop. It was fantastic meeting you.
Yeah, they usually will come, when they're called. Girls! Look at, come on!
Look what we got.
Come on!
Look what we have for you.
Here, look at that.
Come get some treats. Come on, babies. Come get some treats.
Come on!
Oh boy, you better hurry before they're gone. You better hurry.
Girls! A little suspicious this one here.
There you go. Oh yeah.
Oh, now
Oh, come on, baby. Is that the one that was little before?
yeah, that's a little one there.
I have got the first tree pruned up here in the forest and needle plucked. So you can see there's some definition to it now, that the foliage kind of has pads. There's space between the branches. I wouldn't say I've, done the final finishing of it, but it's a good start. I have a lot of bare areas in the upper part of this tree. There's a couple of dead branches. They've been dead a long time. One at the back. So this tree at the front, I'm growing the new leader here, and it relies on foliage from behind kind of filling in the space. So I think as these back trees get more defined, you'll see it'll look better, this main tree. It won't be so noticeable, this spot here, because you'll be able to see trunks on the other trees and branches that kind of fill in that area. I've worked away at the forest, pruning it, thinning the needles, so it's getting there. This is what I would call a first pass. So now I've got to stand back and kind of have a look at it. Have a look and see, maybe some of these clusters are a little dense here, so I've got to come in and pull needles out to kind of equalize the vigor throughout the forest. But it certainly looks a lot better than just a big, massive green clump like it was before. It's certainly getting there. So I'm going to continue, refining it, pruning away needles as I see them, getting light to all areas of the forest so there's space between all the trees, so those branches down low aren't getting shaded out, especially in the middle here. Yeah, and you can see that main tree. I mean, it's still not ideal, but maybe that's part of bonsai. It's just, you've got to do what you can with what you have, and I'm trying to do the best I can with this material. You know, I replaced that whole top of the tree this spring. I can show you the cutting. I kept it. Yeah, there it is here. So that was the former top of my tree here. Wild. So yeah, I've replaced the new leader here, and you'll find this leader will slowly go vertical over the years as it develops. So I'm not too worried about it not being that vertical at the moment. All the other apex were developed the same way on these trees. You know, you prune them off, hard prune them here, grow it again and prune it again, and you know, eventually you get a nice twisty kind of more vertical top to them. So I'll keep working away, doing more needle thinning to try and kind of get a little more light in there. I finished thinning out the foliage pads, trying to get light each branch and kind of thin them out so they're all kind of about equal density. So there's kind of a view from above. Trying to get space between the trees, it's hard because they just want to keep growing into each other. But I think it's not bad. It's certainly come a long way since earlier today when I started working on it. Now, I gotta do some moss trimming. It's like really thick here. So I'll have to come in and do that. The moss has gotten really long, so I've got to decide if I want to leave any areas that length, like, you know, creating moss bushes or that kind of thing. So I think I will. It looks like there's a good place for a moss bush in amongst the rocks here. So I'm going to separate this moss into a bush by pruning it. So there's some bushes by the waterfall here. That's looking good. And then I think I'll want a little bush down by the water's edge here, but not a big one. So I'm going to just keep this part of the moss and prune away the upper section. So it kind of cascades around the rocks. I think that's looking nice. So I got a clump here, sort of a low, get rid of this. A low patch there. Sort of cascading into the water a bit. Then I got this up here. I don't think I want anything kind of constricting my waterfall here. So I would say maybe a small bush here and prune away all the rest here. See how that looks. It's looking better, I think. Kind of opens the waterfall up a bit. Like that. So I've got a bush here. I've got to make that a little more rounded. And not as large as this one. I think a smaller little bush. Something like that, I think. I think that's looking good. Little one there, one here, one down lower. Okay, now I've got all this moss up here, and I don't think I want it that long. You know, unless I have a few bushes, which might look good. Definitely, we could put one here. So I'll prune away, isolate that one. It looks okay. It's maybe a little long. It looks kind of identical to this one. Maybe I could prune that one a bit and this one back a bit. I don't want them all the same size. Variation is the key. And I want to be able to see the rocks a bit too. So that's looking better. And I think this calls for a moss bush up front here. Show part of the rock there. No point having rocks in your planting if you can't see them. You just add weight for no reason. That one's looking good. This one's pretty undefined here, this one here, and I don't think I want like 1, 2, 3 here. I'm going to prune that one right back. There's a nice rock behind it too that I want you to be able to see. And it kind of leads up to the base of the tree here. I don't want moss growing around the base of the tree. Be careful. So I'll prune that away too around the base of the tree here. Now that's looking better. So if you have areas without any bushes, like here, it makes the bushes kind of stand out more. Makes them a little more special. Okay, that's looking better out front here. Now there's a rock in here that's totally hidden. Better trim the moss away from it. I like the little moss bush at the start of the stream head here. It looks nice. Got another moss bush back here. Maybe some clumps there. These clumps look good. They just need a little defining. All right, it's taking shape. There's a rock back here in the forest that you cannot see. I want to be able to see the trunk, so if I have a bush, it'll be here, back here somewhere. So I'll kind of start pruning around for that. And you want to be able to see this rock in here. So the bush will kind of be beside the rock to kind of soften the rock a bit. If you have rocks without moss near them, they just kind of stick out of the landscape. But if they're kind of, you know, integrated with moss, it looks quite nice. Makes it look more natural. So I've got to decide, this is my water area, and I've got to decide what I want to do here. I think it's looking too high. You know, the hill kind of tapers down and then it has this big mound here. So I think I've got to take all this back. So this is a different kind of moss up front here. I like this little clump here. I'll keep that. So I'll separate it a bit. So I'm clearing it away so you can see that other rock back there from the front view here. And I want to be able to see in at the trunk of this tree. So I'm going to start by pruning away the moss so you can get a viewing angle to look at the base of this larch back here. I'll just fly in and show you how the landscape's coming along so far. So I think it's looking interesting. A lot of cleanup and work to go still, but I'll keep at it. But yeah, I think it looks interesting. It's not a boring landscape at all. Now I think I'm going to remove this moss in the middle because you can't see the tree behind. There's a low branch here. I don't think I need a moss bush there because, you know, it's kind of getting in the middle of the forest where it's usually pretty dark, and so I don't want much growing in there. I think I'm going to give this a water too. Some of this moss is a bit dry on the inside. So yeah, I'll give it a watering and then I'll keep going. All right, here I go with the water. Give it a good thorough soaking. It's getting quite dark outside, and not because it's late in the evening, but that it's probably going to rain soon. I've kind of got this side roughed in quite nicely now. I've got to go in and fix it all up, but I think that's looking good as far as bushes and that and pruning. I just got to tidy it up. But this other side here, I used to have a flat kind of path going around here, and it's overgrown with moss. So I think I need, you know, those step layers. I've got this rock out front and another rock up here. So I'm going to work on this side now, getting that kind of pruned to size. All right, so you're looking at the side view here. I'm kind of looking from the front here. So I definitely think I need to do some pruning here. So I don't want this rock totally hidden. I'll just prune this moss back. I don't mind it at the base of the rock, but I don't want it growing up in front, obscuring the rock. Again, otherwise there's no point having a rock there. So there's kind of a look from the front. I don't know if you can see it too well here, but yeah, looks quite nice. So I think, I isolate this moss bush, do a little trimming behind, and then pretty well the whole composition's roughed in as far as moss. I'm working away and just starting to get into the detail work where you come down low and you start picturing the actual landscape and start refining all the little clumps of moss and all the details to make it look, really realistic. Really fun stuff. I really enjoy it. I think, though, I'm going to continue tomorrow. I don't want to rush it. I got to get all my little stream details just right. There's lots more work to go on it. And tomorrow is supposed to be partially sunny, so I think I'm going to leave it like this for today. Come back and start working on it again tomorrow, doing all the little detail work. All the very fine pruning and picking out, needles and anything that shouldn't be there. And and then we'll come back in the sunshine and see what the forest looks like all completed. I really enjoyed working on the larch forest today. It was all bushy and shaggy, and I started defining the trees and then the landscape, and there's still some more work to go for part 2. And that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.